So obviously within the context of digital commerce and in general, mobile is a hugely important component of how the consumer is sort of interacting and engaging with brands. Things like context and location are hugely important. And then thinking further ahead, new interfaces like voice and hearables are also starting to play a role. And so really excited to have Dennis Crowley here, who is the co-founder and executive chairman of Foursquare, to talk to us a little bit about what they have been doing within the space recently and how that might impact what brands do moving forward. So Dennis, thanks so much for joining us here at Retail Innovation Week.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
So you guys have recently launched the Marsbot product, which is sort of leaning into voice. It's moving away from, I guess, like more of an active role from the consumer and more into more of an ambient sort of passer user experience. Maybe you can just start by talking a little bit about that product and how you see voice, audio, hearables kind of playing a role in the way consumers sort of interact moving forward.
Even going back to like the really early days of Foursquare, like in 2009, 10, 12 years ago, in our early pitch decks, we've always, we wanted to kind of make these pieces of software that were, contextually aware and proactive, like things that would kind of reach out and touch you in a given moment to tell you like, oh, go inside this store, or a friend is around the corner, or, look left, there's something interesting you need to see. And, when we started, like the iPhone just came out and we were kind of pushing at the boundaries of what you could do with a lot of that. And I think over time, you've seen a lot of the Foursquare technology, kind of evolve around this idea of smart notifications at just the right time, being able to understand what you might like based on the places that you've been. And so, this Marsbot product, Marsbot is a character that we've used, in the Foursquare ecosystem for years. But, this Marsbot for AirPods product that we made is really kind of this manifestation of like, what if you made something that was kind of like Alexa or kind of like, Siri or Google Assistant, but you didn't have to summon it. Right? Like right now with these assistants, you have to like rub the magic lamp and say, hey Siri or hey Google or whatever, in order to get them to pop out and help you. But what if we made something that was the thing tapping you on the shoulder saying, hey, I hate to interrupt your walk, but let me tell you about this awesome falafel place you just passed. Or like, I know you're trying to get to the, I know you're trying to get to this place, but let me tell you that a buddy of yours is around the corner right now. So that's what we were working on. And, we kind of looked at it like through the lens of, everyone's excited about augmented reality and this idea that like, things are visually going to pop in front of you, either like virtual Pokemon characters or an arrow pointing this way or, whatever the things happen to be. And I think we're still a little bit of I'm very excited about that space and that vision, but I think we're like a long ways off from that. Like, I don't know anyone that wears augmented reality hardware outside, not ones that allow you to see things. But like, can you think of headphones as kind of like poor man's augmented reality? Like, can it do the same thing that visual AR would do, but just do it with audio? And I think that was kind of a big idea that we hit on last year. And it's really kind of fueled a lot of the way that we think about this stuff and a lot of the things that we've built into that Marsbot for AirPods product.
And so from a sort of user point of view, what's that sort of experience look like for someone who's has that activated and is walking around New York City, let's say?
Yeah. It's I should have mentioned this earlier, but it's an app you can download from the Apple iTunes App Store, whatever it's called. It's only available on iPhone. We didn't build an Android version yet. But really, it's an app that you don't have to use, that you're not supposed to use. Right? Really, you put the AirPods in and it gives you a chime. Like in addition to the, AirPods makes a chime to say like, oh, I'm on. We have a chime that plays after that saying, oh, Marsbot is activated. And then just as you walk around, you start hearing messages about, this is the best coffee shop in the East Village. Oh, your buddy Alex went here 2 days ago. Oh, this restaurant just opened up. Maybe it's something you want to try. We built in the ability for people to record their own messages, like record their own voice and kind of leave that as a nugget. So when you step on top of it, like it could be, oh, this is, you hear the voice of a friend. Hey, look up here and you'll see a really cool piece of art on the ceiling. And it like creates these really weird, like serendipitous moments, right? Especially when you combine it, like if you're listening to music, we built it so like it doesn't pause the music, it just kind of lowers the volume and you hear the voice talk over it. So sometimes it almost like it matches the beat. It's really interesting. But like, you know, we built it as like as a playground, right? As a playground for how do you turn New York City into like an audio geofences environment where anyone can make anything that they want. And the only thing you have to do to get it to work is just put an AirPod in and walk around. And like it works pretty good. Like this is like the absolute wrong time in the world to be launching a thing that's encouraging people to walk around aimlessly and discover things. But like we're very hopeful that when things go back to normal-ish, that like it'll be a super fun platform to play with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I also do think there is something nice about, you know, as people kind of like rediscover their cities in this sort of new world that we're living in, how important that will be to kind of like, you know, reintroduce them in some ways. You know, I mean, obviously we're speaking to an audience right now of retailers and brands and agencies, and, you know, I'd be remiss to not sort of think about what are the ways that this platform can, you know, sort of create new opportunities for people to play around with.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, you just think of different forms of content. Like one of the things that we baked into Marsbot for AirPods just before we launched it is this ability to play a jingle every time you walk by a McDonald's. And I don't mean like, oh, we picked 5 McDonald's in New York. I mean, like we went in the database and said, take every McDonald's in the world and put a geofence around it and make it so the McDonald's jingle plays the moment that you walk by a McDonald's. And, you know, if you're just walking down the street, you hear it, right? I had to change the jingle because we didn't have the copyright. So it's just me whistling something, but it's still equally effective and weird. But, you know, just like a nugget of audio, almost like a poor man's ringtone, right? Like as an ad unit, right? Or as a reminder or as an encouragement to go somewhere, right? It's just different, right? And sometimes like the most interesting stuff comes out of, I think, media platforms that are slightly different, right? How do people turn tweets into advertisements over time? How do people turn Instagram posts into ads? Like, of course, we all understand that. But how do people turn little audio nuggets, little sound cues, little things that are only supposed to last 3 seconds and can be played on top of another clip of audio? And you know, like, I'm excited to see what people will do with the platform and in which ways they can push it.
Yeah, it is. Anytime you see these sort of like nascent platforms kind of emerging, it's that sort of like those early experimentations to see what actually works and how you can kind of play with the forum, which I think is really, really interesting. So in terms of, you know, it's you know, relatively early days in the Marsbot product. What are you hearing from the sort of from your users in terms of their response? What's been helpful? What they like about the product, etc.
Yeah, there's only a couple thousand users of this thing, which is fine because it's kind of half baked. It works. It's just like we don't have the narrative. Like, how do you live your life without Marsbot? Like, we haven't answered that question yet for people. But the feedback is, you know, the feedback is exactly what we wanted, right? It's like, it's a little engine that kind of delivers surprise and delight to people, you know, maybe once a day at the very most. Like most people, they download it, they put their AirPods in, they don't hear anything. They don't hear anything for days. And then that one time that they go walk their dog or go for a run, they get a notification about a coffee shop or a seafood restaurant or whatever, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, that was really cool. It was really magical. It was the last thing I was expecting. And it was actually helpful content. And so, you know, we've gotten enough feedback like that from people to let us know, all right, we're kind of on the right path with something. We just need to dig a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure with something like this where there's that kind of like tension between notifications being too overwhelming or, you know, overtaking whatever their sort of normal experience is, it's like finding that right balance and figuring out what's gonna be the most impactful for, you know, sort of people moving forward.
Yeah, there's always a line between like, you know, like cool and annoying. And, like with this type of stuff, we try to straddle the line a little bit. The McDonald's jingle was like, let's be clever about it, but let's see, is it annoying to people? And people like it. It's weird, but we're getting that type of feedback from people. And it's not a ton of feedback, but it's enough to let us know, like, okay, it's something here. We just got to keep going.
So, experimentation is obviously one of the things that you're leading within Foursquare. You head up the Foursquare Labs team, and your remit is kind of like seeing what you can do within the context of the platform. Maybe you can talk about some of the other things that you've been working on and what that kind of experience looks like for users as well.
Yeah. So the labs team, it's like the Foursquare internal R&D team, right? It's like we take the tools and technology we've built and we try to push them to the limits where they no longer work. So we can go back to the engineering team and say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what needs to change here. And so that's what the Marsbot audio thing does. Like, all right, we don't need 10 geofences. I need 10 million geofences in the city. Let's make sure that works. The other thing is like put the tools and technology to use in like new and novel ways. So this year we've been super really busy trying to put a lot of our data and technology to use for COVID use cases. So we did a bunch of things from the Foursquare Recovery Index showing state by state and county by county, like which categories of places are trending up and down. That was more of a commercial thing that we made for partners and for advertisers and businesses. And then we're also involved with a bunch of nonprofit entities, making a lot of our aggregated anonymous like foot traffic data, making that available to crisis responders and local governments on a city, a state, and a county level, so they could make decisions about what do the shelter-in-place orders need to look like? Are they being enforced? Are there categories that we need to add? And this is going back to like April, May, June of this past summer. But we've heard from a bunch of local governments and local teams, like they were giving us feedback that the tools that we were making for them were kind of invaluable in terms of helping them make decisions and figuring out if those, if they were making the right decisions, if those things were working. One of the cooler things we did was this cooler like public facing things was this partnership we did with Link NYC. Like if you're in New York City and you walk around, you see those big flat screens that are kind of like digital billboards. And if you walk by them, you'll see signs that say, hey, the best time to go to the grocery store in Gramercy Park, or the least crowded time to go to the pharmacy in the East Village. Like all that stuff is powered by Foursquare data. We were thinking about, can we do that for outdoor dining? Can we highlight local businesses? So I think there's a lot of things that we could do there. Before that, we were, we did some interesting stuff with South by Southwest a couple of years ago, like this hyper trending product that was able to show me where all the phones are, right, in Austin at this time, and use that to predict where people are going to be, like which places are going to be interesting, which parties are picking up, right? Not a mainstream use case, but like an interesting way to kind of tug at what you can do with that type of data and with that type of technology.
Yeah, I mean it's fascinating because obviously I didn't recognize that you guys were behind the Link NYC project or initiative, but I mean that's one of the things that we see from a consumer point of view is if you're going to be visiting a store, there's all these new sort of concerns that you have as a shopper about this uncertainty, and being able to take that data and make meaningful sort of recommendations to people is hugely important. So I think it's really interesting to see that play out. In terms of those partnerships, I'm curious, are you guys going out and sort of talking to potential partners and saying these are the types of things that we can do for you, or are they coming and sort of seeking out your technology and know-how?
Yeah, it went kind of both ways. In the early COVID days, March, April, May, a lot of folks reached out to us, like local governments, public health officials. It was a lot of like, hey, I'm friends of a friend with someone that you worked with many years ago, and they said that you have all this awesome data about like, are people going to beaches right now? Can you help us with that? And that wasn't something that there's like we're not gonna monetize that. Just like let's build dashboards that allow people to get to that data for free and hope that it helps people make decisions. But a lot of our stuff was tooled towards markets and DMAs, and local governments were finding they work on a county level, a county or a zip code level. And so we kind of retooled a lot of what we were doing to make those tools work for them. And then, I did a bunch of blog posts this summer about it, like, hey, we made this thing. Hey, we made another thing. Hey, we made another thing. Really just to put it out there, like, hey, Foursquare has some cool tools and technology. Like, you should, come to us if you can do something with it, right? We've had this whole Foursquare for Good initiative, which is kind of like a mini contest that we run every year, and we've been running it for the last couple of years, where nonprofits submit an idea for an app they want to build, and we give them tools and technology and some money in order to pursue it. And it feels like a big extension of a lot of that work. There was a lot of talk about contact tracing apps this summer, a lot of different consortiums of people popping up to help make these things. And I was actively involved in a lot of those discussions. How can Foursquare tools help power those things in the future? So we've kind of had our hands in a lot of this stuff, but I think we've been most effective at taking all of our data and putting it in powerful but very simple and easy to use tools for non-technologists to try to pull data out of.
So for the folks in the audience who might not have used Foursquare in the past for their marketing or sort of recommendations or what have you, talk a little bit about the realities of what you're able to offer to people who are potentially sort of tapping into your platform from a sort of data perspective.
Yeah, I think that the easiest way to think about it is a lot of people still remember Foursquare as oh, it's a check-in app. I have to press a button and I check in and I become mayor of a place. And for the first 2 or 3 years the company was around, that was kind of what we were focused on. And then we spent a lot of time building technology that would allow us to kind of understand a check-in, but without the person having to press a phone. How do you make a check-in happen if the person leaves their phone in their pocket or their purse or their backpack? And so that is now a technology we call Pilgrim, and it runs on millions of phones around the world. And it enables us to kind of understand the ebb and flow of foot traffic trends in and out of different places, whether they're banks, supermarkets, Mexican restaurants, indie coffee shops, big box retailers, Starbucks, whatever it is. You just kind of understand, okay, where are the phones going? Where did the phones go yesterday? Can you predict where they're going to go tomorrow? Did phones stop going to this place? Are lots of phones starting to go to this place? Once you kind of understand that global kind of movement, you can do all sorts of really interesting things from that. A lot of what we've been doing over the last couple of years has been about advertising, attribution, whether creating segments or doing targeting or doing attribution. Hey, you ran an ad to people to go to a BMW dealership. Did the people that see the ad actually go to a BMW dealership? Yes or no? Right? That's been the bread and butter for a while. Now it's starting to be more like retail analytics. Okay, well, these people were going to your store this month. Who's going next month? Where are they going the month after that? And we can also do kind of this really interesting metadata stuff of, hey, people that come to your chain restaurant, these are the other places that they go to, and then let's extrapolate the nouns associated with those other places. And so we think these are the menu items that they're looking for. We think these are the specific items or specific nouns or specific adjectives and nouns that they're going after. And so there's so much data in the Foursquare ecosystem that a lot of it is about just connecting the dots, right? Okay, here's a phone. It went to a place. What do we know about this place? What's popular about this place? Where do people that go to this place, where else do they go? And once you can kind of have that string of events and just do it over and over and over again, it turns out you know a lot about what's happening in the world, in the present, in the past, and in the future, which is where it really gets interesting.
Wow, that's really incredible. And I guess just to sort of circle back to something we spoke about right at the beginning is obviously context for a consumer or a user is extremely important, and how does that sort of relevance or understanding of where a person is, kind of change the consumer experience, and then ultimately, like, what does that mean if you're a a brand or a retailer sort of looking to bring that to life for a consumer?
It's weird. It's like even 12 years into Foursquare, the like where am I right now problem is still like it's kind of unsolved. I think Foursquare's Pilgrim technology and the Pilgrim SDK that we have is probably the best manifestation of the solution. But like, when you're talking about, I'm just going to like make up some examples here, but like, okay, I have an AR experience that helps me shop in the supermarket. Like, you kind of have to know the person's in the supermarket, right? Not all supermarkets are huge in the middle of a strip mall. Like, some of them are in cities, some of them are bodegas, some of them are like small shops inside other shops, right? If you're making some kind of game that changes, or whether you're in a Foot Locker or a bowling alley, you kind of have to know those places, right? I was watching the video for the new Amazon glasses that came out today, right? Like, Alexa is in your ear. It's like, that thing works best when it understands, like, oh, you just walked out of the store. Oh, you went to these 5 places yesterday. Oh, you just walked into this place. Like, that's a piece of context you need to understand. Like, where am I now? What's my level of familiarity with this place? Have I ever been in this neighborhood before? Do I know a lot about this neighborhood? Have I ever been to the store before? Do I go to lots of stores like this? Have I never been in this type of store before? And so if you can understand those cues, then you can, start to figure out, okay, what type of assistance can you offer the user at that time? It really all starts with that. It's about like location and history and, that individual's relationship to that place at that particular time. And I think that's a big chunk of what like Foursquare's contribution to the internet has been, like helping us get to the point where you can actually build those things.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's sort of like, how do you go from offering an experience that does something to offering an experience that's actually going to be useful to that person in that moment?
Like, some of the cooler stuff I've played with is, you wear a camera on your glasses, which real people don't really do. But, then I look around the store and it can identify the objects for me in the store. Like, in order for a lot of those image classifier tools to work, like in that context, it needs to know, like, okay, I need the image classifier library for the butcher shop. I need the image classifier library for the, for the supermarket, for the bread aisle, right? Like, so, like, everything starts from like where I am, right? And once you can solve that core issue, then you can start building services on top of it. But a lot of like the really most like interesting and intriguing of these like science fiction-y augmented reality virtual assistant use cases, like we're almost there, but like it's you have to have 100% accuracy and like, okay, well, where I am right now, what am I doing at this moment, right? And that's that's what we're still trying to help people solve, because it's not a solved problem.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to see where you guys sort of head in 2021. Thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us today, and good luck with everything. Thanks, Dennis.
Conversation. Thanks for having me.
All right.